All right, back on the morning drive on this Thursday morning, 64 degrees outside in Lowndes County on this Thursday. Of course, over the last few weeks, we've been talking a lot about the Supreme Court's review of the Obamacare health legislation, and that decision will likely be coming in the next couple of months. One man who has been front and center in Georgia's suit and fight against the health care legislation has been Attorney General Sam Olens. We're fortunate to have him with us this morning. Sam, how are you?
Doing great, Chris.
Thanks so much for joining us this morning. First of all, let's talk a little bit about exactly what went on last week. Of course, 3 days of arguments, which is almost unheard of with the Supreme Court. And in your mind, how did everything go?
I thought it went very well. We presented a great case. Bush 43 Solicitor General was the lawyer for the 26 states, and I think that a lot of folks watched those 4 arguments over 3 days and felt that we had put on a very strong case against the Justice Department.
Now, of course, there's so many different parts of the Obamacare health legislation, but what the Supreme Court was looking at was really the constitutionality of, I guess, the mandate, and also whether they could indeed strike down the mandate but leave the health care law as a whole, or can they separate it? Was that part of the discussion?
Yeah, there were literally 4 topics. One was simply whether the case was ripe, and it was clear after the first day that the justices were ready to hear the merits. The second day was the individual mandate and whether or not it violated the Commerce Clause because it requires someone to buy a product or pay a penalty. The third day had 2 arguments. One, severability. If you strike the mandate, does the whole thing fall? And the afternoon was an argument concerning the expansion of Medicaid. Approximately half of the people that would receive health coverage under PPACA, the president's bill, would do so through Medicaid, an additional about 650 to 750,000 people in our state.
So when we talk about the far-reaching effects of Obamacare and the fact that it would cost businesses and cost so many people, that's part of it, but that's, again, not really what the Supreme Court was looking at, not that part of it, simply the constitutionality of it.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, for once, there's an interview that relates to the law rather than healthcare policy. I greatly appreciate what you hear the liberals talking about all the time but we need changes to healthcare. Well, you got to decide, is the Supreme Court for policy or is the Supreme Court for the Constitution? And I would argue that what they're supposed to look at is simply whether or not that 2,700-page act is legal. And the whole issue here is the principle of federalism and whether or not the federal government is limited to those enumerated powers listed in our Constitution.
Now, again, we're joined by Attorney General Sam Olens this morning, and the reason this is so important, Sam, as we all know, is because it does impact just about every citizen in the United States in some way, shape, or form.
Absolutely.
Some more than others, obviously, but it is far-reaching. And when you talk about this, and you've been on our show talking about this before this ever went to the Supreme Court, is
sure.
the reach of government in our society. And we all thought this was egregious whenever it came up, and it seems, I don't think anything has changed.
No, absolutely. I mean, you get to the decision that if Congress can require you to buy something, what is the limit then upon Congress? And this past week, 2 days ago, when the president sought to intimidate or chide the Supreme Court by saying you don't have the authority to question a democratically elected act, that's pretty scary. I mean, forget the fact that he's a lawyer, forget the fact that he went to Harvard Law School, forget the fact that he allegedly taught constitutional law. We have 3 co-equal branches of government, and the fact that every Democrat in the House and the Senate voted for a bill and every Republican voted against it doesn't mean it's the best thing since sliced bread.
And Sam, I got to be honest with you, I quite often disagree with the president, but I really did, like you, I found that shocking that he would even make that statement. I mean, that's more than just disagreeing with him. That's on principle. That's I just couldn't believe he would make that kind of a statement about the branches of government.
Well, I think, unfortunately, it foretells what the campaign's going to look like later this year. I mean, I think this is clearly going to be a no-holds-barred, say anything possible to get the base to the polls for re-election. And if it is at the expense of our Constitution or the expense of our system of government, that's not important.
Well, when you can't run on your record, I guess that's what you have to do. Let me ask you, or is it possible to hear the questions or the comments being made by the justices and try to predict what the decision might go like?
No, I mean, for those that try and predict the vote based on the questions, you'd have a very poor track record and would be, filing bankruptcy. I think it's got, a couple of things are clear, though. One is the court was very prepared, and they asked very difficult questions to both sets of lawyers. And I say that, number one, because it's true, but number two, when we filed the lawsuit, we were told it was frivolous. We were told we should have sanctions put against us. We were told we had no legal authority. And a lot of the mainstream media is saying, oh, my God, we could be in trouble here. So we don't know where the votes are. And, my guess is that June 28th will probably get the decision. That's the last day they're set to give decisions this term of court. And at that time, when we read those hundreds of pages with the main opinion, the dissents, the concurring opinions, we'll know exactly what the court intends. But I think it's clear that the arguments are being taken very seriously on both sides. Everyone understands this is an historic argument. I think what was very, very interesting was the fact that a couple of the justices had their spouses in attendance. That's certainly not the norm.
That is not the norm. Nancy Pelosi says it's going to go 6-3 to uphold it.
Well, and it may go 6-3, but she's the same lady who said, vote for it and then read it and you'll like it. So she has zero credibility with me. Yeah,
we all know she's stone cold crazy, but I just thought that was a weird prediction for her to make. But
she's also the individual whose district got the majority of the waivers so far, even though the bill is so fantastic.
Yeah, well, there you go. No more needs to be said about that, so... Well, listen, we appreciate you leading the fight. Of course, Georgia, one of the 26 states that filed suit against this, and we'll all wait until June to see what that decision is. There's been a lot of speculation, but I think I agree with you. To speculate right now is almost a fool's errand because it's hard to know. I think we have an idea of how some may view it, but you never know for sure.
Agreed.
Sam, thank you so much for your time this morning. Always good to speak with you.
My pleasure. Have a great day.
You too.